Hey yo, what's poppin'? Today I'm not talking about the usual illegal thing, but another one. Well, it was actually legally done at the time, but we are jumping back to a different time period in which laws were a bit more how you going than the judicial system we have today. Ladies and gentlemen, today I will be explaining and ranking the different torture methods used back in the day. In medieval times, well, more accurately around the time of the medieval Inquisition in Europe around the early 1200s, growing animosity towards the Church resulted in a new decree from Pope Innocent IV. This very innocent man declared that torture was now a perfectly valid method to use against those thought to be against the Church. With their shiny new methods, inquisitors from the Church would go around medieval cities of Europe to extract confessions and punish criminals. If we take a look in my bag here, you'll see I brought my tier list with me. Let's take a look and see how bad it could really get. The rack is a device in which the subject is placed on a long and tilted, usually wooden frame. Underneath are two big rolling pins. Possibly having originated from Greece, these rolling pins were not made for baking gyros, but breaking gyr bones. The victim's hands and feet are chained or tied to these rollers, and using a lever, the roller connected to the hands would be slowly turned and would start by straining the shoulders, hips, knees, and elbows of the victim. This would continue into the dislocation of joints, and if pulled enough, could tear off the limbs entirely. Apparently, this was a common occurrence, with limbs collected this way being, quote, emptied by the hundreds. Even when the limbs were not torn off completely, the excessive stretching of muscle fibers often left the victim with unusable spaghetti limbs afterwards. Some later variants have the inclusion of a spike pointed at the victim's back, which would inflict additional physical damage and handicap the person through the spinal cord. Most often used to extract confessions out of people, this was a pretty effective meta strategy, with the slow rate of increasing pain being exceptionally good at convincing people why they shouldn't be questioning the church. So, where would I rank it? I have to give it some points for its meta dominance at the time, and while it surely ranks quite high in physical pain inflicted, I will say it does lack some oomph in the fear and mental damage department. Obviously, all of these situations are not going to be desirable to be put into, but looking at this setup, you do get a somewhat comfortable frame to lie on, and if you're a sick masochist, or if they didn't buy LDR, you could be kinda chillin'. I'd place it around an A tier because it's still pretty scary. Okay, I already know what you're thinking, but no, it's not what you think. The cucking stool was a device used for people who were considered public nuisances, predominantly women. Whoa, 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 relax. Those are not my words. It's just what it says here. It's a simple design. Chair with hole in the middle. Bam. Easy. Most of us have one of those at home. The victim was strapped into the chair and paraded around town, with crowds gathering to insult and shame them. Maybe a few tomatoes were thrown? I don't know. The goal was not to unalive or even harm the person, but to show the public's disapproval of them, and to hopefully seize their annoying or blasphemous behavior. It also served the purpose of instilling fear into those around who were not conforming to social norms at the time. The ducking stool, on the other hand, is the more evil brother of the two chairs. Instead of merely parading the accused around after strapping them down, the victim was instead raised above a bank of water using a seesaw contraption, then partly lowered or dunked into it. As this was in Europe, during use the water would often be freezing cold, and while there were non-fatal incidents, it could result in death from shock or drowning depending on the circumstances. It was one of the earlier methods used for identifying witches during the 18th century. How did they work this out through a chair? No clue. But the later installment of this method didn't bother with the use of a chair and just chucked the damn witch in the pond. Bind them up, they float. Her body is rejecting the holy water. She's a witch. Death sentence. They don't float? Well, she may not have been a witch, but we don't have to deal with that now. I'm a little off topic now, so let's return to the stools. Which one is worse? In all honesty, the cucking stool barely belongs on the ranking. I've played League for 10 years, there's no way some insults are gonna bother me. Plus, I'm not a woman, so I'm relatively safe from this one. Easy F tier. Now, the docking stool, though. I've never had a drowning experience, but from the things I've heard, it definitely seems like one of the worst ways to go. Extreme panic and fear, tearing sensations, no power to stop it. As a beta version of waterboarding, we gotta give some credit to the OG, but I also want to think it can't be as excruciating as something like the rack. I mean, there were instances of people leaving the stool completely physically unharmed. You also get a chair to sit in, and if you think about it as one of those amusement park things where they lift you a million feet in the air, then drop you, maybe you'd even have fun. Stop being so negative all the time. C tier. Some of you must have seen this one coming. Made famous through fiction, this mentally horrifying method was actually a real practice in medieval Europe. If you didn't already know, the conventional method of rat torture includes a bucket, a torch, and a few friends from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. The victim would be strapped down with their belly exposed and a bucket full of rats placed on top of it. The bucket is heated from the outside until the rats have but one way of escaping the heat, burrowing through the victim's body until they reach the other end. Needless to say, the mental image of this is very disturbing. Variations include placing the rats on the face or inside other areas. I don't want to elaborate too much more on this, so we're going to the next one. This goes in S tier. For this one, I want to tell you a little story. We begin in Athens, where our protagonist Perilos is making his living as a sculptor. One day, he is called upon by Phalaris, the ruler of Acragas, a city now known as Agrigento in Sicily, Italy. He takes his horse and makes the journey across, all the while wondering what Phalaris could have in mind for him. When he finally arrives, Phalaris, eager to put Perilos' sculpture creating skills to use, orders him to create a hollow, bowl-shaped structure with an opening, and it was to be made entirely out of bronze. That's an interesting task, but nothing beyond his capabilities. Days pass. All the while Perilos is working on the bull, and he starts to ponder the purpose of his creation. Perhaps a decorative piece for Phalaris' citadel. Bulls were associated with fertility and divine power after all. If that were the case, his sculpture would be seen and appreciated by hundreds, probably thousands of people. That would mean even more business prospects for Perilos. This has to be made properly, a work of art. But why was it hollow? This made it a lot harder to construct. Maybe they were saving on bronze. But why the opening on the side? After much toil, a very satisfied Perilos completes his creation and presents it to Phalaris. He says he figured out a wonderful use case for the hollow nature of the structure and had implemented two special features based upon it. Pointing to the opening on the side and leading up to the nose of the bull, he proudly exclaims how placing a fire underneath the bull would cause a heretic placed inside the bull to create a wonderful spectacle. See, the bull is designed in such a way where smoke coming from inside the bull would be let out the nose, almost as if it were alive. Special pipes, he adds, have been added to transform any nonsense being spouted by the burning heretic. His screams will come to you through the pipes as the tenderest, most pathetic, most melodious of bellowings. Phalaris looks him up and down questioningly, and asks if Perilos could demonstrate how these pipes work. Absolutely, says an eager Perilos, and hops inside the bull through the opening on the side. As soon as he does, the bronze door above is shut and locked, and a strong fire is lit underneath the structure. The bull starts to heat up, and Perilos, now inside screaming, is not heard by the royal crowd, his cooking flesh producing dark clouds of smoke emitting through the bull's nostrils, and his yearns for help sounding like the deep bellows of the animal being represented. Okay. This entire story is like 3,000 years old, all alleged, and I did dramatize it a bit for the video. But you get the point. Burning alive probably doesn't feel very good. And if someone put me in front of a bronze bull, I would be shitting bricks. I also have to give this one an S tier. Ouchie, wouchie. That sure would hurt. I'm not sure how people survived back then, but I'm glad they did. Otherwise, we would never have been able to get rid of this cruelty and build a better society. Nor would I be able to make this video for all of you to watch, and I could never become a niche micro-celebrity on the internet, and that's maybe the worst pain of all. In all seriousness, torture is probably the worst crime against humanity there is. Designing tools for the sole purpose of inflicting as much torment as possible is some actual Lich King, Mordor, Blackrock type stuff. So yeah, this was a different type of video than my usual stuff. Leave a comment below to tell me if you want more of this type of content. I could absolutely make a modern method version, but I will still be making my regular content. Planning to upload more from now on, so leave a like and subscribe if you want to get notified when the next video pops up. All the best, stay safe, peace!